They laughed when she couldn't spell her name by second grade. They rolled their eyes when she forgot where her shoes were again. By middle school, teachers had stopped asking her questions altogether. She's just slow, they said. She'll catch up. Or maybe she won't. They didn't see the patterns in her scribbles or the way her eyes lit up when she looked at the stars. They only saw what she couldn't do. They never asked what she might. But somewhere deep inside her, past the tangle of words beneath the silence in the classroom, a universe was forming, and one day, that universe would speak, not in sentences or test scores, but in numbers that chart the heavens, in code that guides spacecraft, in genius finally recognized. This is the story of the girl they labeled slow, and how she became the mind NASA couldn't live without. Her name was Layla. In a world that demanded speed, Layla moved like honey in winter. By the time the other kids were reading chapter books, she was still stumbling through the alphabet. Her pencil grip was awkward. Her thoughts came in pictures, not words. She couldn't explain how she felt. Not when the teacher asked, not when the other girls laughed behind her back. She's behind, they said. Developmental delay, the report read. Maybe special ed, one whispered. No, her mother said softly but firmly. She's not behind, she's building. But that belief wore thin over time. At home, Layla spent hours alone, not pouting, not scrolling, not hiding, just watching. The way water curled around a spoon, the rhythm of birds tracing arcs across the sky, the glow of stars beyond the bedroom window. She didn't memorize facts, she absorbed them. She didn't speak often, but when she did, she asked the kind of questions that stopped adults mid-sentence. Why doesn't the moon ever fall? If numbers have patterns, do feelings have them too? What if gravity isn't a pull, but a dance? No one knew what to say, because no one really knew how her mind worked. Not even Layla. Not yet. It was supposed to be just another Tuesday in chemistry class, the kind where Layla usually sat quietly in the back, doodling geometric shapes in the margins of her notebook. Not because she was bored, but because it helped her think. That day, the teacher posed a challenge no one could solve, a riddle of molecules and reactions that stumped even the honor roll students. Layla raised her hand. The room shifted. Some giggled. Others exchanged glances. No one expected her to say anything, let alone answer a complex problem. But she did. She didn't just solve the equation, she explained it in a way the teacher hadn't even considered, drawing patterns in the air with her hands like constellations coming to life. Her voice was quiet, but her answer was undeniable. There was silence, then applause. For the first time, Layla wasn't invisible, she was irreplaceable. That moment didn't just change how her classmates saw her, it changed how she saw herself. The fog she'd lived under for years, built from labels like slow, began to lift. In its place, light, possibility, clarity, and for the first time, a question burned in her chest like a rocket waiting to launch. What if my brain isn't broken? What if it's brilliant? Layla didn't change overnight, but something in her posture did. She began asking more questions in class, not the kind found in textbooks, but ones that reached beyond the edges of known science. Questions like, what if time isn't a straight line? Or, why does gravity curve light? At first, teachers weren't sure how to respond. Some still saw the shy girl with the slow processing time and quiet speech, but others began to listen, really listen. One science teacher, Ms. Patel, saw what others missed. She noticed how Layla's eyes lit up when discussing fractals or particle collisions. She offered Layla extra materials, quantum physics videos, links to coding tutorials, even an old circuit board to take apart. Layla devoured them. Late at night, when most students scrolled through social feeds, she was watching NASA live streams, sketching propulsion systems, learning Python just to simulate gravity wells. Her bedroom walls filled with equations and star charts. Her notebooks, once full of classroom doodles, now bloomed with formulas and theoretical blueprints. And it wasn't just science. Layla had a gift for seeing patterns in chaos. She could read data like music, spot flaws in algorithms with eerie precision, and simplify complex ideas in ways that left her teacher stunned. Her test scores still came in late. Her processing speed wasn't fast, but when they did, they were near perfect. She wasn't behind, she was building. One afternoon, Ms. Patel pulled her aside and said, "You ever heard of the Artemis program?" Layla blinked. NASA's lunar mission? Ms. Patel smiled. "They're looking for research interns, not just high GPAs, people who think differently. You might be exactly what they need." The application asked for essays, recommendations, even a personal project. Layla submitted a working prototype for a lightweight lunar mapping drone. She built it in her garage from recycled parts. She hit submit, and she waited. Layla stared at her inbox for weeks. Every morning began the same: refresh, sigh, repeat. Then it came, a subject line that nearly made her drop her phone. "Congratulations, you've been selected for the Artemis Junior Research Fellowship." She blinked, reread it twice. It wasn't a prank. She screamed so loud her mom came running in, terrified, only to find Layla laughing and crying in the same breath, holding the email like it was a lifeline. But the dream didn't come without shadows. NASA was intimidating. The other fellows had already published research, competed in international math Olympiads, or attended elite magnet schools. Layla was Layla, a girl from a small town, public school, a delayed processing diagnosis that still made tests feel like mazes. The first week at the program, she barely spoke. In group discussions, her ideas came slower, and by the time she was ready to speak, the conversation had already moved on. She feared the whispers again, that familiar old word, slow. One night she sat alone in the lab, long after everyone left. The quiet wrapped around her like an old friend. In that stillness, she took the simulation code they'd been working on, one that had stalled for days, and rewrote a core function using a logic pattern she had once visualized as a spiral. It wasn't fast, but it was elegant. The next morning, the simulation ran perfectly. Her mentor, Dr. Sanchez, looked at the output, then at her. "Who? Did you fix this?" Layla just nodded. From that moment on, something shifted. People began pausing when she raised her hand. Colleagues came to her with questions. She wasn't the fastest, but she was right. In their final project, her team proposed a breakthrough in satellite to drone lunar mapping. Layla's design became the centerpiece. Her processing delays no longer mattered because she saw what no one else saw: a whole different way to look at time, gravity, and communication. And then came the ceremony. Dr. Sanchez took the stage and said, "Some people are fast, some are brilliant. Layla is both, if you're patient enough to listen." In front of her peers, scientists, and her own mother in the front row, wiping tears from her cheeks, Layla accepted an award that would have once seemed impossible: Junior Innovator of the Year. Layla didn't return home the same person. The town that once whispered about her delays now proudly placed her photo on the library wall beside other hometown heroes. But she didn't care about the applause. She cared about the kids still sitting in the back of classrooms, misunderstood and mislabeled, just like she once was. So she started showing up to classrooms, to school board meetings, to conferences where people debated education policy without ever having met a child like her. She told them, cognitive delay isn't the absence of intelligence, it's a different rhythm, a different wiring. If you can wait for the music, you'll find the genius in the melody. Teachers listened. Some rewrote lesson plans. Others reevaluated how they graded participation. NASA invited her back, not just as a fellow, but as a speaker, and not for her technical innovation alone, but for her advocacy. Layla later co-designed an AI toolkit that helps students with processing disorders visualize math and engineering problems in ways traditional teaching could never reach. Her patent now helps thousands of neurodivergent learners across the country. Some even call it the Layla lens. And every year she mentors a new student who's been told they're too slow, too quiet, too different. She doesn't try to change them. She shows them how to hear their own inner tempo. Layla once believed she was broken, that she was a glitch in a world that ran too fast. But now, standing in rooms filled with brilliance and buzz, she knows the truth. She was never behind. She was just moving at the speed of understanding. In a society obsessed with speed, quick answers, fast scores, instant results, Layla became a living reminder that depth takes time, that brilliance doesn't always announce itself with raised hands or rapid answers. Sometimes it simmers, quietly, until it shines. She remembers the silence after teachers ask questions she couldn't yet process. She remembers the sting of being called slow, when really, she was just thoughtful. She was building, layer by layer, not failing, just forming. And now, when she sees a student looking lost, not because they don't care, but because they care so much they're still thinking, she smiles, because she knows that genius doesn't always arrive on time, but it always arrives. And sometimes it goes further than anyone imagined. There's a photograph now, tucked into the corner of Layla's desk at NASA. It shows a younger version of herself, maybe 10 years old, clutching a notebook full of equations no one believed she understood. She had drawn stars in the margins, little dream maps to places she wasn't sure existed yet, places she didn't think she'd ever belong. Now she builds them, not just satellites or data models, but bridges between misunderstood students and the futures they still dare to dream of, between teachers and patients, between silence and the brilliance blooming inside it. She gives talks now, not to brag, but to translate, to make sure that no other child, no other Layla, ever has to sit in a classroom and feel the weight of a word like slow press against their chest. And when she visits her old school, they don't remember her as the girl who needed extra time. They remember her as the one who proved that time, used well, can do the impossible. On the wall outside the new learning center named after her, a quote is engraved. Words she wrote when she got her first letter from NASA. It took me longer, but I didn't take the wrong path. I just took the one only I could see. Because sometimes the best minds don't race. They wait, they wonder, and then they launch. If Layla's journey moved you, if you've ever been underestimated, overlooked, or called too slow for a dream that burns inside you, don't let that label stick. Share this story. Let someone else know their timing is not a flaw. It might be their gift. Subscribe for more true-hearted stories like Layla's, where brilliance is quiet, strength is patient, and genius often looks nothing like we expect. Because the world doesn't just need faster minds, it needs deeper ones.